Well, hello, Southern Oregon, and welcome back to the Real Estate Show. So happy you could join us again today. I'm Alice Lema. I'm a broker here in beautiful Southern Oregon with John L. Scott Real Estate. And today we're lucky to have Guy Giles from Churchill Mortgage back filling in. There's been a lot of new developments in the financial world this week. So Guy Giles agreed to jump back in, which is great. Before we get to talk to Guy Giles of Churchill Mortgage, just wanted to go over some of our local stats real quick. We're tracking week to week right now, residential, all three counties. And this week, Jackson County listing activity is up 6%. Josephine County this week, listing activity is up 9%. Klamath County listing activity this week is down 5%. Now, these are total active, not new. That's just what's still on the market right now. And then we wanted to look at the super important numbers, not that they're all not important, but they sold numbers are really interesting. Jackson County this week is down 3%. Josephine County sold is down 8% this week, and Klamath County number of solds is down 4%. Again, that's just residential. And then the average sales price, which is very interesting, Jackson County is up 5% price for this week. Josephine County is up 7%, and Klamath County is up 9%. So those are some really interesting numbers. We're down on our solds, we're up on our listings, and we are up on price. So in a possible recession, I know there's some argument out there about if we're in a recession or not. I'm of the vote we are, but I'm not an economist. I don't play one on TV. However, my point is that as a real estate person, I find it very interesting the prices are still up moderately when our inventory is up only slightly right now, and our number of solds is down. So that's our stats for the week. We're going to get to talk to Guy Giles again this month here real quick. Talk about some of the latest updates from the financial world and the lending world. Before we get to our interview with Guy Giles, want to take a quick break and say thank you to our sponsors. We're thankfully brought to you by John L. Scott, Ashland, Medford, our local Rogue Valley Association of Realtors, also known as RVAR, and Guy Giles, Churchill Mortgage. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. It's going to be a great show. Well, hey, Southern Oregon, welcome back to the Real Estate Show. So glad you could join us again today. We are so excited we get to talk to Guy Giles of Churchill Mortgage an extra time this month. There's a lot going on in the market. He was so gracious to agree to jump in today and kind of fill in some of the blanks. Welcome back, Guy.
Hey, thanks. It's just another one of those weeks where everything is just crazy in my world anyway. Just trying to keep.
And that's why we need a little more of your expertise. So there's an awful lot of hardship being experienced in people's budget, and the housing market, at least according to the mass media, sounds like it's slowing down. What's the reality? What are you seeing?
Well, just looking at the raw numbers, I think we're down purchase applications like 23% or something. So that doesn't seem like it's that big of a hit, but in our overall world, if you think about all the refinances that were happening not that long ago, those are probably down 80%. And I was out at a meeting a little while ago, and I honestly didn't print everything out, but those should be fairly close to where we are right now. So it's a lot different world than it was just 6 months ago. I feel like people are settling in with kind of the new reality right now, and maybe jumping in on a house when 2 weeks ago they wouldn't have it all. But now that we have a couple of strategies in place, as far as maybe not reducing your house $50,000, but asking for 2% in closing costs, we can buy your rate down to where it's not all the way down to where it was before, but it will sure feel a lot closer to the good old days than it would just quoting a raw rate today.
So is that kind of what people are doing? Is they're adjusting? They're trying to adjust their lifestyle and their finances so they can still buy something? Is that what
Yeah.
you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a huge proponent of let's just do this no matter what. Maybe it's not that $600,000 house. Maybe now it's a $450,000 house. But even with what's expected to happen this year as far as housing prices, I mean, it is all we're supposed to go into, at least as far as what most people are saying, is like a more realistic appreciation rather than just the ridiculous appreciation that nobody, that nobody could keep up with. I think I did some math the last time that if it kept up like it did last year, a $400,000 house would be worth $34 million at the end of the 30 years. So we like our house to go up in value, but we don't need inflation like that. So, just this correction really needed to happen. And it's painful for us in this business. And it's definitely painful for the people that are not in a house right now or want to move up or want to move down. But it's a correction that needed to happen. And, we have a Fed that's been a little bit in denial for a while, but I think it's finally stepping up and doing, taking the right actions to at least address the inflation. So it's not going to happen today, but I do believe by first quarter next year, maybe even the end of this year, we're going to start seeing some pretty good relief in these. So I think my main advice for people at this point is let's get you ready right now.
I think that's excellent advice. Yeah.
Even if you're not buying in 4 months, and say you have a 720 credit score, which is very respectable. If we can work with you over the next month or two, you stay on with your search with Alice and let her send you listings every week. So you see the stuff that comes out. And then when that one comes out, that's just the perfect one, maybe it is time to jump. Or if you're, really needing to wait for the rates to come back down a little bit. And now we might've worked on your score a little bit. I'm not a credit repair place, but we can definitely give a little bit of advice on, this might get you an extra 20 points on your credit score. And there are very real things. Maybe we can talk about that in a minute as far as what you can do on your credit score. But I'm thinking
that would be great. That would be great, because part of the problem I'm watching people have on the real estate purchase side is that with the volatility in the market and the ever increasing interest rates, they don't either qualify for the house they wanted, or they do qualify, but the payment's higher than they are comfortable with. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And again, that's just about getting in and really getting educated. I mean, some people got burnt. There's no doubt about it. They got into a house, their lender may not have locked them in time. The rates may have gone up while their house was being built. I think everybody knew rates had to go up, but some people did get caught in the middle of that. I was actually meeting with Myra, an agent, believe it or not, this morning for a minute. She lost about 4 deals out of escrow, where the one guy was buying a $550,000 house, and literally when the rates went up, this wasn't one of my deals. She was just telling me a story, but when the rates went up, it just kind of put him out of that market. And now they're back down looking at houses at $350,000. So it was quite a shock. And that's kind of why she was meeting with me, is she's searching for a new lender to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
But that said, everybody got caught a little bit in this whole thing, and it won't be forever. When you mentioned dream house a minute ago, maybe it's not your dream house right now. Maybe it's just a place to get into the game, because these aren't going to go down as far as the houses. I don't think, at least around here, the fires were a huge factor. There's just a lot going on that are, just kind of determining our market and the availability of houses right now. And my dream house was a single wide, was my first one. And it was cool to have something that was mine. But at the same time, I made money on that. It was on a little bit of property, and I bought it for 80 and sold it for 119 a couple of years later. So even if it's not your dream house, just, maybe figure out how to get into something if it pencils out. Again, that's where it comes in to just, if you have family or friends that are thinking about it, have them come in and sit down with me. I'm not going to obligate you to working with me if I'm not competitive on my rates. I'll look you right in the eye and be happy that you got something else. But I think that right now it's a time to really educate people, to get them, like I said, ready to go, and, no surprises. And actually the numbers that I go over with them right now will probably look a lot better when they buy, end of year, first quarter next year.
Yeah. So there's also this ongoing argument that the rates might go down.
Mm-hmm. Well, I really believe that. I mean, the Fed, God, I don't know how you hire anybody to do the monetary policy for everybody, that only 3 out of maybe 14 of you actually ever even held a job in your life.
Oh, you're talking about the people that are running the Federal Reserve.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah. I won't go into deeper.
Yeah, we gotta. So the question is about, are the rates
going to go down? I really believe so. I was reading something this morning where FedEx, the CEO, was talking about them really slowing down, and you have to look at signs rather than, I mean, I think the White House came out with a big party the other day because they got rid of inflation or something, that the day that the Dow dropped 1,200 points. We need people that really understand what is going on with this economy, and we had to raise these rates up in order to slow down, what was happening with this inflation. Gas is going to go down if people buy less gas, and the high gas prices cause that to happen. Us raising up rates, we're looking at least 3/4 of a point at this next meeting is where they're going to end up going with this. And I really do believe, even on Friday, the Dow was down another 360 points midday. That some reality is coming back into it, and that's what needs to happen. And then once we recognize it, we get this inflation under control, I have no doubt that they'll figure out some way to do some quantitative easing through the Fed again.
Yeah. Well, goodness only knows what the economy is going to look like even first quarter next year.
Well, hopefully it looks like crap, and then everybody will admit that it looks like crap, because that, I mean, it's like ripping off a Band-Aid. If we just try to keep throwing money at inflation like we have been, it's not going to help anything. We just have to really realize what will get us out of this, and what will get us out of this is having some higher rates, pulling some money out of the system rather than putting money in the system. And I do believe that that's finally getting recognized by everybody. So I do think that, like I said, first quarter, I think by the middle end of next year, we're, squarely in the 4s again on the rates. And
wow, that would be so interesting.
I'm not writing policy, but actually that Myra that I met with, marry the house, not the mortgage. It's not like you have to have that forever. If you end up going, a little out of your comfort zone or something, or you end up buying a house right now, that's not the rate you have to have forever. And
well, and then are you seeing that the appreciation is still happening in Southern Oregon? We've been tracking almost week to week, which I know is kind of micromanaging, but just this week, Jackson County was up 5%. Year to date, Josephine County was up 7%. These are prices week to week, and Klamath was up 9%. Those are almost normal, repeatable kinds of appreciation, but it just seems counterintuitive, doesn't it? To have appreciation when we are, quote unquote, maybe in a recession, air quotes.
Well, I think a lot of these numbers are driven on, like a 12-month moving average. So as those really high numbers move out from, say, September, October last year, talking year over year, and then you're replacing them with, what's actually going on right now, I do think those will come down some, but I honestly don't think a ton. I'm thinking like 3.8% maybe next year, and I don't watch that as close as you guys do, but just maybe
that would still be a nice.
I think so.
Yeah.
I just don't see them going down. I mean, it might feel like they are because there's so many price reductions right now, but that's just coming off of the unrealistic highs that, was stretching everybody to begin with, and you couple that with some higher rates, and now all of a sudden the buyers are a little bit more in control, which that makes me happy because those are the people I represent.
Well, and also it's nice for the purchase market, to have what I call breathing room in between the time of looking at property and writing offers. That was one of the negative side effects, I thought, of the like total overwhelming seller market, is people didn't have any time. They had to overbid, and there was no thought necessarily going into the purchase.
No, I would absolutely take asking them for a little bit in a concession rather than having to reduce the prices right now. I think you make up your time a little bit quicker that way.
Yeah, but it skews the perception for sure. So we've got to take a quick break. We're talking to Guy Giles, kind of a volatile week in the financial world. He graciously agreed to jump in and kind of fill in some of the blanks. Guy Giles, Churchill Mortgage. We'll have a quick word from our sponsors. We're thankfully brought to you by John L. Scott, Ashland, and Medford, our local Rogue Valley Association of Realtors, also known as RVAR, and the man in the seat today, Guy Giles of Churchill Mortgage. This broadcast will also be repeated on Sunday at 6 p.m. Do not touch that dial. We'll be right back. Well, welcome back to the Real Estate Show, folks. I'm Alice Lema, broker John L. Scott here in Southern Oregon, talking to Guy Giles of Churchill Mortgage again. He was gracious enough to jump on the show today after an extremely volatile financial week here in the United States, probably volatile worldwide, but we're focusing more on Southern Oregon and our national economy. Right before the break, we were talking about some of the hardship people are experiencing and how difficult it is to reset a person's lifestyle goals. But Guy, you were saying that they're doing it successfully and able to kind of move forward with their purchase. Is that what you're seeing?
I'm starting to see it again. I mean, I think everybody lost a lot of their pipeline recently, when everything just kept shooting up, everybody got a little bit scared. But once reality kind of sets in and you realize that there's still not enough housing around here, even for the people that we have right now, let alone anybody wanting to escape California.
Mm-hmm.
I am seeing people kind of jumping off the fence. Some higher dollar ones, to be honest. I've had 3 or 4 doctors move to town that I have in contract right now, and the medical piece always seems to go strong no matter what the economy is. But I am seeing people kind of coming off the fence and pulling the trigger, so to speak. So it feels like it's changed some.
Well, that's good. That's good. Do you have a lot of relocators still in your loan program?
I actually do. I tend to, I don't know why I tend to attract that kind of people, but I always kind of have. I just work with a lot of agents that work with out of town buyers. So it's always been a huge part of it. The only real drawback right now is just, at least with people coming to town, is they don't know exactly where they want to be. And that's one of the hard things, is just like you go find a house in East Medford and you fall in love with the house and you know nothing about the neighborhood. So, a couple of them are now in contract, but they've spent, a couple of months just renting something, even if it was kind of expensive for them, just to kind of feel it out and find out where they want to be. Because that's another mistake that could be made if you just haven't got your feet wet. I have a couple moving from New York next month that they still haven't even been here. They bought their house that wasn't even built yet, and sight unseen. So they'll have a couple of surprises when they come to town next month and everything's all done.
Well, it's very volatile right now, and it creates a lot of stress and anxiety for people. So what about the first-time home buyers? How are they faring this week with the yet again more intense level of volatility?
Well, not as well, to be honest. We have a program that we affectionately call the bond killer, where there is 100% financing for first-time home buyers. And
what is that?
Well, it's an FHA loan that that will cover your down payment with a second mortgage. So there's two kinds of seconds depending on what your income level is, but they actually work off 160% of the median income. So that
Really?
takes us to about 100. Gosh, I looked it up yesterday and then I went home. It was at the end of the day, well over 100, I think $30,000 that you could actually make. You can get this second mortgage. One of them is repayable and one of them is not. There's always, the big print giveth, the little print taketh away syndrome wherever. So it does have what we call a recapture on that second if you don't, if you sell the house within 10 years. So it really has to be a place that you intend to be for a little while, but
Okay.
they can use that for your down payment, some of your closing costs, and basically get into a house without much skin in the game. I know it really feels like that's what got us in trouble before, but they're still qualifying for the loan. So, anyway, it's just all off the FHA guidelines. And if we can get you approved from just a regular FHA loan, you will actually approve for this loan.
Wow. So
It's
what kind of so what would be, I don't want to say buyer profile because that's the wrong word, but what kind of buyer financial situation, how about that? What do you look for somebody to qualify for this 100%? We give you the down payment program. Is that through Access?
No.
Oh, this is
Actually,
different.
I just spoke with somebody about Access.
Yeah, because Access does something similar.
Yeah.
But tell me about yours.
Well, and then from what I understand, they're out of money right now anyway. They run a great program. So this is just it's through one of our broker channels. And
through Churchill Mortgage?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
very cool.
So I think just a real life example that just happened with it was somebody's house that burned down. Their house wasn't worth a lot, but they ended up walking away with about $30,000. The real estate agent went to him a little while after and said, "Do you still have your down payment? I think I have the perfect house for you." And he said, "No, I had to buy a trailer so my family could have a place to live."
Oh, okay.
And then something about his daughter needed some braces. Just life happened basically. And
Right.
he ended up having to spend his down payment just to survive. And that would be kind of the perfect scenario as far as somebody that's responsible, that pays their bills, does everything, but just isn't able to put together a down payment.
Interesting.
So
they're going off of income.
Yes. Yeah.
And credit score.
Yeah. And I'm sure in the background, again, it's a program that I just kind of dug into yesterday. I'm not really seeing a lot of weirdness with it. It looks like it is actually a good, viable program. I'll be done over the weekend kind of vetting the thing out, but I think it's a great option for people,
Well, see, and this is why we want to talk to you again today, because when the world is going, looks like it's spiraling down in a handbasket, there's always little opportunities out of these kind of mini crises. And it's really great that Churchill Mortgage is responding this way with these new ideas and fresh strategies so that people can keep moving forward without over indebting themselves, because that's super important right now too.
It is. I've lived on both sides of that coin, and it's a whole lot more fun to it's not the absolute end of the world. Man, yeah.
Right.
So that was a lesson I never forgot, and I always try to educate my buyers on that. And but again, I still think that if everything's not the perfect scenario for buying a house, there's always some light, and the light is you're not going to have this rate forever. But the other part of it is, what's the alternative? Getting into a bidding war where you're bidding $10,000 over that next person.
Well, see, and that's what that was like until not that long ago.
Well, yeah, and then
you had to overpay.
Well, you had to overpay, and then you had to promise that if your house didn't appraise, that you were going to make up the difference with your own money.
Yeah, which is terrible.
Yeah, try to budget like that.
Yeah,
I felt for the people because they needed a place to be, but at the same time, I was watching the interactions go back and forth in the offers, and I'm just kind of shaking my head, saying, "Might be a blessing if this house doesn't appraise."
Yeah. And some
And
people were saying no inspection whatsoever, which, that's risky even on a new house. We've had brand new houses with broken sewer pipes for $12,000. So
oh my gosh.
yeah, it's a big gulp, when you're in that heated market. So I think a lot of us are welcoming a little slower pace, just because it feels more sustainable. But you still have to go back to this thing where the prices are going up slowly in a sustainable way. Like we were just talking about, Jackson County this week had a 5% increase from a year to date, so to speak, in residential. So how do
Well,
you counsel people that say, well, I'm going to wait till next year?
um,
I'm going to wait till next year and see if the interest rates go down. What do you say to them when
well,
we're faced with some appreciation anyway in this market?
yeah. For me, I just really try to sit down with them and let them know what a realistic number is going to be. I mean, I want to go through the taxes, through the insurance, through the mortgage insurance, if that's going to be applicable on their particular thing, and just it is just a math problem at that point. That's one cool thing about the way my brain works. It's just everything kind of breaks down to a math, and it's either it makes sense or it doesn't make sense. And I don't see a big crash just because we did not do the poor lending like was done before the crash in 08, 09. So I talk to them, and if it makes sense, it does. And if the math doesn't make sense, I just kind of tell them, let's work on, maybe you need a little better job. Maybe, it was out of necessity that I broke out of my, kind of blue collar minimum wage type thing a lot of years ago. My daughter needed braces, and I thought, am I going to go into debt for 5 years over these braces, or think about something else to do? So I left working for the county and started doing something else. So maybe you're delivering pizzas for the next 6 months on the side so that you can save up
Yeah.
a little bit for a down payment.
Yeah. So how does that work? How do you guys look at somebody who has a side gig that may or may not be permanent? I mean, somebody comes to you
Well,
and they say, I'm working 2-3 jobs so I can buy a house. How do you look at that
you would
extra
have to
income?
have a history of that. I mean, the last thing I'd want to do would be to put somebody into an extra job just so they could afford their mortgage. I was mainly thinking like to get your financial situation in a better
Oh, pay off debt, save up for down
payoffs.
payment, that
Yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah. Do that
gotcha.
sort of thing. I mean, if you have a long history of doing a couple of jobs, you can count that income, and definitely something
So
that was
people who
part.
work a lot of overtime.
Yeah. We just average that out, and then we find out if it's expected to continue. Same thing with bonuses, commissions, all of that. You're really just averaging out what they have been making historically on those. And if it's a newer job, you document through the company that it's something that's going to keep on happening.
So,
So
and that's different than what was happening in the crash, because in the crash, the lenders weren't asking it. Not all the lenders were asking a ton of questions.
yeah, well, and even if they were asking questions, it was like, I got in with a couple of girls that were super smart, so I never sold that kind of thing. But back then, if you had a 680 FICO score, you could do what was called a stated loan, and you could just tell us what you made. And there was
Oh, without
never,
anybody checking?
yeah, and if you had an under
Oh,
680
wow.
credit score, they would charge you a half a point, so a half a percent on the loan, and you could still tell us what you make.
Wow.
It was crazy. I did not engage in that stuff.
Hmm.
So I was just super lucky. Karen Burkett told me never to do that. Same thing with Peggy Nichols. Both of them
Yeah,
said,
Peggy
don't do those
Nichols.
loans.
Yeah, I remember her. She's great.
Yeah.
So, we only have a quick minute left on this segment. We've got one more coming. In 30 seconds, how do you want to just wrap up revising your expectations?
Well, mine haven't really changed. I mean, I am at the mercy of the Fed and how aggressive they're going to get. But I really think by the end of the year this year, first quarter next year, we'll really start seeing some relief in the rates, and it's just going to make everybody feel better about it. But in the meantime, I'm just a proponent of, if you're not ready to buy, let's get you ready,
Yeah,
and
so you have
just
choices.
keep your eyes out for that right house, and you just
Yeah.
might find it right now.
Okay, Guy Giles, Churchill Mortgage. We're going to take a quick break and be back. Don't touch that dial. Welcome back to the Real Estate Show, folks. I'm here with Guy Giles at Churchill Mortgage. I'm Alice Lema, your host for the day from John L. Scott. And one of the things we have not talked about today, Guy, is what happens to our tenant population in these troubling times, and what's the difference between hunkering down and staying in your rental versus trying to branch out and, take the plunge into home ownership. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, just kind of like we talked about, in the previous segment, it's just about getting ready right now. What's the worst that can happen if you got that extra job and started saving some money? The worst thing is that you're still renting next year, but now you got $10,000 sitting in a bank account, which is freedom as far as that goes. So I think that if you're a renter and that is your long-term plan, it might feel better for the moment. But if you look back 10, 15 years ago, there's no doubt that you could be in a house cheaper than what you're paying for rent at this point, if you catch it, kind of at the right time, because rents are going to go up. I mean, I do have a couple of rentals, and I know what happens when things cost more money. People don't want to give up their quality of life. Or they still have to make ends meet or whatever. So rents are going to go up, just like everything out there in inflation. And even though your taxes will go up a little bit every year, that's a really good way to buffer yourself for the long haul as far as that goes, because at least you're in control if your taxes are only going up 3%. But if your whole nut for your rent is going up 7%, I heard a ridiculous number today with inflation the way it is, that rents could actually go up. You'd probably be more familiar with me, but it was over 10%, just because they factor in the inflation piece on it also. So even though we had low inflation when all that legislation was put through, without that, you could be subject to a lot higher rent, and people are still paying it and they seem like it. So I think your best way is home ownership to get out of that rat race. Either somebody's selling your house out from under you, or they're raising
there's a lot of that happening.
Oh yeah, that's what I see a lot. And I tried to help some people, not that long ago, and he had a boat, he had a truck, he had a bunch of things, and it boiled down to that was more important to him than having a house, which, hey, it just is what it is. But that's what I mean about just getting in early and starting to take the steps, because none of them are going to hurt you in your overall life. If you, work on your credit score, if you pay down debt, if you save some money for a down payment, you're always going to be in better shape than you would be just, living day to day.
Well, and some of the security that people derive from home ownership is you're not really able to explain it until you actually own your own house and you have that sense of financial security, and also just insulation from some of the housing market gyrations that renters, when renters are going through these volatile times, they don't know. It's that unexpected financial crisis that could be looming that homeowners don't have. But it's hard to explain to people what that's like.
It is, because it's, and a lot of times you don't realize that it's a whole piece of your financial picture. People will put money into, they'll add to their 401k, they'll do different things to try to prepare for the future. But the biggest, most sustainable one, that to my experience, has been buying the house. I mean, so, but if you're not selling it right away, it's like, well, great, that's some money that I can't access. But at that point, when you do sell it, or, whatever happens later on, that's just a huge part of your net worth that's just going to be growing and compounding, every year. And I mean, where for 20% can you realize the appreciation on the other 80% plus your 20%? Meaning, if you put 20% down on a $100,000 house, now you're getting whatever you said, 5%. You just made $5,000 just on that. So if you're paying $1,700 for rent and you're like, oh my gosh, now my mortgage payment is $2,200, but your house appreciated $19,000, basically, the net to the whole situation is that you're you're ahead of the game. Way
Yeah,
ahead than paying
your
a little
net
bit
worth
less.
has gone up, your security has gone up. You're not having anything change in your mortgage except what Jackson County does or your insurance
Well,
company does
yeah, and instead
for
of
your taxes.
instead of
Yeah.
your landlord having an extra $18,000 equity in his or her house.
Well, that's the thing. If you run your rent for a year and then multiply that for 5 years, let's say you're a tenant for 5 years, that's frequently buying somebody else a house.
Oh, I know. I have no doubt my family bought the house we were in when I was growing up. I watched them pay $118,000 rent for a house that was paid for $36,000.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah. And anyway, I did that math after I got into this business, and it's pretty amazing. But like I said,
Yeah.
even if your payment's up a little bit, you're still able to write off your mortgage interest. You're able to write off your taxes. If you are in a certain income bracket, you could write off your mortgage insurance, and you have this asset that's worth more at the end of each year than it was. Even if it goes down for a year, the trend is always going to be up. So you're just creating wealth for, for your family, for the future.
Yep. And the other part is that tenants are nervous about going to talk to a lender. I'm not sure why. I know it's hard to get all those papers together, even if you're an organized person. It's like it takes a couple hours. But well, how do you talk to first time home buyers, tenants, and and get them to just make the appointment, at least online?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, I mean, if you can't find a bank statement or you can't find a pay stub, you probably shouldn't buy a house. But
In the digital age, if you can't get a bank statement offline,
yeah,
maybe
and
it's too soon, but you should still come and talk to a lender.
I think
That's funny.
so, because well, and again,
He's
you
just
just
kidding, folks.
yeah, I mean, because I'm that guy that can't find one, by the way. But it's just about getting in and having the conversation. And if it literally, I mean, I've had people come in here and I say, well, what are you paying for rent? And they tell me $700. And I can't look them in the eye and say, maybe this is the best financial move for you right at the moment. But I guarantee you they will call me 3 years from now when that house is getting sold out from under them.
Well, yeah, and that's what happens. Like if you're sitting there with a really low rent, you don't think your landlord knows what the current rents are. People are paying $1,000 to rent a room, a master, like just to get their own master. I'm sorry, we have to say main suite, main ensuite room with your own bathroom. People are paying as much as $1,000.
I saw some numbers yesterday on rents, how much they'd gone up year over year in the state. And honestly, I didn't even believe them enough to quote them.
I know you think it's a mistake, but it's not.
Yes.
They're really, really high.
And it was showing the average 2-bedroom over $2,000 right now to rent.
Yeah, and for sure 1,600, 2-bedroom, 2-bath for sure. Landlords are getting 1,600. Well, Guy Giles, Churchill Mortgage. This is great information. It's going to make people feel better. It's going to give them some real strategic action items. In just the few seconds we have left, how do people reach you by phone if they want to talk to you this weekend?
Yeah, my cell phone number, I'll answer it on the weekends also, unless I'm at church. But my number is 541-944-6987.
Thanks so much, Guy Giles, Churchill Mortgage, Southern Oregon. Have a beautiful weekend. We'll see you next week. Bye now.
Hey, thank you.